Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I'm building some power steering lines, and then we're going to get to some oil cooler lines.
Welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV. I'm Jeff Allison, and thank you for watching.
Let me back up and give you all the components here, and I'll see if we can get these all in the view. We've got the Hydro Boost system at the back of the firewall here. We have a power steering pump down here there's 3 fittings on the Hydro Boost, there's 2 fittings on the power steering pump, and then right here we have the power steering reservoir, and it has 3 fittings. So the goal is to plumb all this together. And I had enough time prior to SEMA. I got the main line from the reservoir to the pump installed, and I got the low pressure return from the Hydro Boost back to the reservoir. And I may end up changing this fitting just to make it make things fit a little better. I may take this one off and put a 45 on, but we'll see what we have to do there in a few minutes. For now though, I need a 2 90s off of this unit, off the Hydro Boost unit, and the first one I'm working with is the high pressure output, which goes to the steering rack at the bottom. I don't even think I mentioned that. There's a steering rack at the bottom, rack and pinion steering, with 2 more fittings, a high pressure inlet and it would be I guess a low pressure outlet. It's still, you know, I mean, the high pressure side, we're working off of 1500 psi, and we're not killing all of that pressure, so we still want to use a pretty good pressure hose. So what I've done is I got 190 on there, and then this fitting has to go all the way down. This hose needs to go all the way down and into our power steering. And it's okay to cut this hose a little long. I mean, I don't want to waste a lot, so let's not cut it, 6 or 8 inches long. Let me grab some tape because I want to wrap that before I cut it. So we're just going to put some electrical tape. You could use some good quality packing, like tape with the little fiberglass straps in it. And it doesn't need but just a round or 2, and that's basically keeps that braiding from unraveling. Now if you're doing stainless steel hose, you need a little more, maybe a little more than electrical tape, but you still need to wrap it. In fact, you need to wrap it better. Okay, so this hose that we just cut, all these are going to get laid up against the inner fender, and this one's going to go down. This is the pressure to the pump, so it's going to go into our lower fitting. And we got plenty of hose for that, and we can just, looking at how it's going to approach it, I'm going to put a straight fitting on the end of this rather than a 90 or a 45. Then the next hose that we want to look at will be the return hose off of the power steering unit, and it returns back to the reservoir. Is any of that, can you see any of this? Not a very good shot for it, is it? You can kind of see right there. So there's 2 fittings down here. The lower one is the pressure inlet, and it comes from the Hydro Boost. So we want to feed the Hydro Boost first, then the rack and pinion, and then it all returns back to the reservoir. So that one's lined up, and we're going to put a straight fitting on it. Then the other one will probably also come off a straight fitting and will come back to the power steering reservoir, and it's going to be a pretty easy shot. So we're looking at doing something like straight off of that. We need enough to kind of tie all our lines together and then kick it into this 45. So I may bring up a little. I could come straight off of there. We can just tie in, lay in next to this line. That'll work. And then, so we want maybe this much. At least, you know, what we'll do is we'll get one fitting on, test fit everything, and then we'll, once we have one fitting on, we'll come back, test fit the hose again, and then go back and install our second fitting. That way if we need to shorten the hose up or anything like that, we have another opportunity. So this hose would come off the upper fitting, which is the low pressure side, come into a 45 up here. Might have got that one really good. So, straight fitting there. I really think we're really close, but let's go put a straight fitting on this hose end, and then we'll come back and check it one more time. Alright, so what we want to do next is go ahead and install a straight fitting. So this is the high pressure line from the Hydro Boost down to the power steering, and I was saying we wanted to put a straight fitting on there. So this is a straight hose fitting for dash 6 hose and dash 6 fittings, which is what is recommended. And the trick here, you take, it's not really a trick, you take this apart, which just unscrews. And then I'm using some aluminum vice, I don't know, teeth, whatever you'd call that. And I put that fitting in there. And I like to be able to push on it this way rather than having to try and push down. So that's just the way, that's just my preference. Then we've already cut it, and we cut it right in the middle of where we taped it. So both pieces of the, after the cut, are still in good shape. So we're gonna run this in, and there's some threads in here. So basically we're gonna screw this into this fitting. And you gotta push pretty hard. Somebody does make a tool that will grab a hold of the hose and pull the hose into the fitting. You know, it's like a little, I think it had a little hydraulic piece on it and stuff. It's pretty cool looking, but it's not that hard a job. So you screw this in, and you might have to check once in a while, but the goal is to get it to where, and I may have gone just a hair far. See if you can see that in there. So the hose is all the way to the end of this stepped part, and this thread is going to go inside the hose, and these threads are going to thread into the top about 1/4 inch of this barrel. So we want to make sure the hose is all the way up the top, and then we want to make sure, like in this case, we can see part of the hose where it's kind of out around. So this is another little tool. This one's made by Russell. A lot of companies have them, but it's made, and you just shove it down inside the hose and kind of wiggle things around. It just kind of straightens everything back out. Now, long before I had that tool, I used just a punch. Take a punch, I'd stick it down in there, do exactly the same thing. So you can do it with a screwdriver, with whatever. This just gives, this has, it's reversible. And it has other sizes, 8, 10. I actually have 2 of them. I have one for 4, 6, and 8, and one for 10 and 12, and I don't know, might even do a larger size. Now the other side, this is the part that's going to screw onto the fittings. This we need to put back in the jaws. That's what they are, aluminum jaws. And we want to, part of this rotates, so we want to capture that piece. in the jaws, like so. Now add some oil so that everything will slip together without binding and cutting your hose. And we don't, you know, the oil helps the threads keep from galling too. And it's kind of the same process again. We're going to shove this on and we're going to push the whole time we're doing it. The other thing I like to do, before we go any further, is I like to run a piece of tape on the hose itself right below the fitting. And what that'll do, it doesn't need very much and it's not holding anything. All that's going to do is that gives us a marker. So if you were working with something you didn't mind taking a silver Sharpie or whatever and marking it, but what that'll tell you is if the hose pushes out of the fitting in the process. Because if it does, you got to stop, turn around, go back and start over. So I screw this on just a little ways by hand. And I got this fancy crescent wrench that, and you could do it with a regular wrench. No need for, this one's aluminum, so it's a little better for the fittings. You know, it doesn't gall as easy. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on, but I'm keeping pressure on there to make sure that doesn't push out. And you can see right there, it started to push out. It's out 1/8 of an inch, so we need to back off and start over. It's almost completely, yeah, now it is completely out. And that's why I put the tape on there. Just to mark that so that I would catch that instead of have a line that's only 25 or 50% into the fitting and then it blows out the first time you have pressure on it. So what that tells you is when I was putting this, when I was pushing on that, I was talking more than I was paying attention. I wasn't pushing hard enough. Once again, once you get it, just look in there. Make sure the hose, the inner part of the hose is all the way up to the top of the fitting. It all looks pretty good. Push a little harder as we're doing it this time. And usually once you get it pretty far on, it won't push off anymore because it's captured both sides pretty well. There we go. You can see the black tape that I put on there was starting to ooze out a little bit, but my blue tape is right up to the edge all the way around, so no push out. We got a nice, good, clean, tight fit. And they're good and tight. These have magnets in them, but they don't necessarily stay in there as tight as you'd like. Gonna make sure I got this fitting tight before. Yeah. Okay, so we have pressure hose built. Now we're going to do the first side of the power steering to reservoir return. Same process. Screw this in, pushing pretty hard the whole time. And like I said before, see, part of this, because it swivels, part of that moves. So we just want to line the corners up, and then we'll push it into the jaws as far as we need to, so that it'll hold that part that pivots or twists, swivels. So again, add a little oil.
Piece of tape. Push this on and get it started.
It starts getting pretty tight. It's time to grab a wrench. Good and tight. And you can see there's no black there, so that all worked correctly. And now that's just the first fitting on this hose. Well, now we'll go back, hook this onto the power steering rack and pinion, and come up and just make sure that the hose length is right. It looked like I got it really close, but we may want to trim an inch off or something, so I'll be right back.
Thanks for watching Allison Customs Project Car TV. Like us on Facebook and check us out at AllisonCustomsOnline.com.